again, as we've continued to grow, we're trying to improve our processes to make the experience, the work experience, as helpful and seamless as possible. And so part of that process is the next step in the evolution of getting expense reports approved and paid. So it used to be that just an executive director had the authority to review and approve expense reports. We are pushing that out now to more people in conjunction with rolling this out electronically. So so it's no longer just the board members who are reviewing expense reports. We've got, depending on where you reside, it could be a department director, it could be a division head, it could be a manager, but everybody has been assigned someone as their expense reviewer. And so Emily's going to go through the process in terms of how you process and submit your expense reports. We're asking the reviewers to turn those around within 3 days? Within 3 days or so. Yeah, kind of like an invoice process. But just understand that you're going to be relying on your reviewer to push the expense report forward to the next stage of the process. This is in an effort to streamline the activities and try to make sure everyone gets their expense checks distributed in a timely manner. We're asking people to acknowledge that it could take 2 weeks before you get paid. We're not going to have deadlines for, if you get it in by this date, it'll be in this paycheck. That tends to lead to a lot of people submitting their expense report.
Oh, that's probably.
Molly, mute.
Yeah. If you folks can mute, please.
That's not me. No, people are signing in with my actual account. Like,
Oh.
for what?
Does.
Like,
yeah.
Which one did I?
Molly, are you talking? Can you mute?
Anybody using Molly to log in, please mute.
So anyway, just one other housekeeping note. If everyone who is participating in this presentation, if you could follow up with an email to OEC Accounting, just to let people know that you were in the training, so we know that you've gotten the information, and we will move forward from there. So I'm going to hand it off to Emily and let her take over.
All right, so I am just going to go through all the steps, kind of a generalized overview of what the process is, and then Ashley will get into all the nitty-gritty expense report details. So we're doing this training to learn about the new expense report approval process, and then, like I said, Ashley will review the details of the module itself. We did not get around to sending out the list of approvers and employees just yet. That will go out today, so you'll know exactly who is responsible for the final approval of your own expense report. All right, so things that are staying the same, just all the technical aspects of your expense report itself is not changing. So your title requirements, dates, account codes, descriptions, attaching your receipts, and submitting those reports in Deltek, all of that is still the same. So all of your initial process has not changed. What is changing is everything after you click submit. So you no longer need to email a PDF to OEC Accounting. Once you click submit in Deltek, you are done for the time being. You don't need to print out your expense reports. We don't want them. No physical signatures are required. It's all going to be digital in Deltek. Like Doug was explaining, we have individual expense report approvers. So it's a little different than timesheets. There's not a certain group that everyone is assigned to as far as their approvers go. It's more of an individualized assignment. And like I said, the approval process is completed digitally in Deltek. So the way the steps go in Deltek is a little weird. It starts with step 0, and that would be your steps. So you're completing your expense report, you're submitting, and as long as your approver field is populated, the workflow will kick in. You don't need to do anything. So that is step 0, your own submission. Step 1 is the accounting review process. So it's still coming to us first, and we get notified via email. Approvers can also get this set up on their dashboard if you're responsible for approving expense reports. So both accounting and approvers can get email and dashboard notifications, so we won't miss an expense report. Ashley is our primary expense report approver in accounting. She reviews all the facts of your expense report. So making sure title, dates, descriptions, account codes, receipts, all of that technical stuff is as it should be. She also looks for expenses to meet policy. If things are questionable, we would defer to the approver or the board. That's not accounting's job to police anything along those lines. If there's a major issue, things need fixed, say 2 months were submitted on one expense report, Ashley can reject back to the submitter. You guys would be the submitters. If she does that, you would receive an email, and the body of that email would say why your expense report was rejected. And then it would be up to you to fix it and resubmit and start the process over. If she approves, then it goes on to your expense report approver. Should I check? Okay. So expense report approver is step 2. So once Ashley clicks approve, your approver will get an email or a dashboard notification letting them know that they have expenses to approve. So they're really looking at your expenses more to see that they're charged to jobs appropriate, they're within reason, making sure they meet policy, answering any questions Ashley may have asked of them to review. And they also have the same options. They can reject back to the submitter and accounting. So we get notified as well. And they would include comments stating why that expense report was rejected. At that point, you'd have to go back to your own expense report, make corrections or adjustments, and resubmit, start the process over. If they approve, you will get an email letting you know that your expense report approval workflow is completed. That does not guarantee when it's going to be paid out. That just means the process in Deltek has been completed, and we're preparing for the final step, which would be posting and paying. So this step 2, only applies to the approvers. We went over this in detail with them in a meeting last week. So once you've submitted an expense report, you might be wondering where it is in the process. There's a couple of different ways to check and see the status of your expense report. So this is option 1. When you go in and you go to open up your expense report, you get that initial pop-up window. I used Doug as an example here. There's different statuses, states, and steps, which I have highlighted there. And the options that you might see are listed off on the right side. So if you see a status of in progress, step 0, that means you haven't actually submitted your expense report. So if you think you've submitted one and you're wondering why in the world you haven't received anything about it, no emails, no money showing up in your paycheck, you might want to pop in and make sure you actually click that submit button. If you see submitted under the status and the step is step 1, that means it's waiting on accounting review. So submitted step 1 means it's been submitted to accounting. So that initial review process, checking those facts, making sure all the information is included, meets our requirements, has receipts attached, all that good stuff. If you see a status of submitted and step number 2, that means it's waiting on your approver to review and approve. So it's been submitted to them. That means accounting approved, it's sitting with your approver if it's in step 2. If you see a status of rejected, you want to pop into that expense report, check out your comments, which I'll show you in a second, and see what needs fixed, resubmit, or if it just needs deleted and you need to start over, you have that option as well once it's been rejected back to you. If you see a status of approved, that means it will be paid out. If it does not say posted, that means it hasn't been paid out yet. It's just waiting for our next round to get paid out. So that's option one, checking your status, if you want to know where your expense report is lingering. The other option is in the expense report module itself. Usually we just go in, we look at that general tab, that's where you fill out your actual expense report. You may have noticed we now have a progress tab, the second tab there. And this is showing the progress of your expense report as it goes through the approval workflow. If any comments have been left, either by accounting or by your approver, that's in that bottom section on the far right side. You can see I've got a little red arrow there. Any comments about items that were questions, concerns, or whether it was just sent on for approval, all those comments will be there. They'll also show in the body of an email you receive if it was rejected back to you. Those comments will be in that email. So that's option 2 to see the progress of your expense report. If you get a link in one of those auto-generated emails from Deltek, it's just like with electronic invoicing, if you are part of that process. Internet Explorer has to be your default browser for any of those email links to work as is. Otherwise, they will not work. So if you don't want Internet Explorer to be your default browser, then you can work around that. You can right-click that link in the email, copy it. You do still need to open an Internet Explorer window and then paste that link and log into Deltek Vision that way. And that should take you directly to the expense report in question. All right, let me open up chat and we'll see if we have any questions. Okay, so with new rolling 2-week process, why the expense reports need a month-end date? Actually,
We will cover that in the second part of training.
Short answer. The short answer is that we bill, you know, we have to capture the expenses in the time period that they're incurred so that we can bill the clients appropriately. We'll go over that here in a little bit in more detail.
any questions about the actual workflow, the steps that your expense report goes through, how to check on the status of a lingering expense report?
Can you receive an email stream?
I don't think we're gonna do that. Not at this time, Jim, sorry. That's not something we can automate. But like I said, if you go in and you see that it's been approved, you should anticipate, you know, as long as the payroll isn't the next day, it would be the next upcoming payroll.
Don't they get them? They get an email?
They get an email saying the process was completed, but that doesn't guarantee the date
Right.
it's gonna be paid out.
Which we still not have on the calendar, the end of payroll.
We did the whole 2-week process.
This will be an evolving process, so, you know, as we move forward, we're open to suggestions, concerns. Right now, this is what we're starting with, and we're gonna see how this goes. If there aren't any more questions, I'm gonna turn it over to Ashley, and she's gonna get into all the details of the expense report itself.
Hide that.
Okay, So as Emily said, there's not a lot of changes that have happened as far as the actual expense report process is concerned. However, please do not take that as an excuse to tone out. You know, we want to reiterate, you know, the process and a lot of things that, you know, some people just aren't doing, some people don't, you know, don't realize that they're not doing. You know, so we really do want you to pay attention to this, not only just to catch all the little things that may have changed, but to really recapture the process. Because we are moving electronic, it is just that much more important that, you know, you're putting the correct month and date, that you're putting the correct titles in there, you know, just right from the get-go, so that, you know, we're not having a lot of rejections happening to the expense reports, and just to save us a lot of time. You know, it saves us time, it helps your expenses get paid faster. So that being said, let's roll into the process here. We're going to be in our time and expense module under the expense report. Now, Emily already talked about this window a little bit, but you can see here the statuses, you know, that she talked about. And one thing I want to show you in addition to those statuses is if you click down here on the posted checkbox, this will show you all of the expense reports that have been posted. So Jim, to kind of build on your question, if you see that, you know, that expense will be approved, it will then move into posted. So if your expense has disappeared before the pay, that'll be when it's essentially getting paid out. Now, a really handy thing about this is very similar to timesheets. You know, this is the window where you can copy an expense report. So if you have a monthly cell phone stipend or licensures that are reoccurring, this would be where you can copy those expense reports. Then obviously you have your new option or your open option. So, you know, what's really nice is that you can have as many expense reports open as you really need to or want to. So I'm going to click the new button just to jump in and show you that the expense report comes in completely blank. And now we're going to pop into the pre-made one that I have here. So again, we'll just click the open button. You can also open from the top, again, very similar to your timesheet. So for your title, we want to see your name and your through to date. Now, this field is customizable. So if you're the kind of employee who is going to do one expense report per month, you know, that's 100% fine. But you may not have a through to date. You may just say your last name and then, you know, May of 2020. Likewise, if you're choosing to separate these out by project number or by client, you would need to have a unique identifier here to identify the client or the project that is being covered in your expense report. It is not mandatory that you separate them out in that way. However, it is helpful for accounting when you do that. But again, so the key point here is that we do want to see your name and we do want to see the date that your expenses are covering. The report date is going to be your accounting month close date. Now, to Osborne, these are very specific. It is going to be the last Friday of the month. Because it's not your standard calendar end date, we have provided them in the accounting month close date section. So if you hit this question mark, this is going to provide you the list of close dates. Now, what's really handy about having them in this format is that this is essentially how your expense report is going to be set up. So, you know, if you're looking at a specific month, so we are in March, so March is going to be from February 29th to March 27th, and that will be your guide. So you should not have any expenses outside of that range of dates for your March expense report. Anything that's going to happen on March 29th essentially is going to go into an April expense report. Now, you know, Dave asked why that's important, and you know, as Doug said, now this is when your expense report is going to be posted. So, you know, when it comes to the new electronic process, this is going to be the date that we're using. So it's very, very important that not only are you only covering 1 month, one of our Osborne months per expense report, but this is going to essentially tell us when those expenses are going to be posted in our system. So moving on to the body, most of the body of the expense report is very straightforward. So your date, you know, the date on your receipt, your category is selected from a drop-down menu, and then your description. Please be as descriptive as possible. We do not want to see one-word descriptions. We would like to have, you know, good, solid descriptions. You know, from an accounting standpoint, usually what I'll tell people is, you know, if we can read it and know why that expense is being expensed and what it was for, then, you know, your approver in accounting can too. You know, so those are the two questions really to answer when you're doing your description. Now, some descriptions are going to require a little bit more and some will require less. You know, but again, you know, what is it for and why am I expensing it? Those are what we want to be answered. If you do run out of characters in this description box, you also have your detail box as well. So if you click on that, click on the 3 dots, and you'll get your box to add more description. I highly encourage everybody to use these, you know, for every line, just because, you know, they'll customize based on your category, but it also just helps accounting give that little bit of extra description, especially for your approvers. You know, if you do have project-related charges, sometimes the clients like to see a little bit of extra detail on that. The only instance where you'll be required to use this extra detail box is going to be for mileage. And when the mileage is, you'll plug the mileage in right here, and it will auto-calculate. Now, I have an old rate. This is last year's rate because this was set up last year. So ignore that rate. That's not the current rate. Okay. So then you'll plug in your total. Now the project number and the rest of this is really where we start to get a little nuancy with our expense reports. So for project number, we have one of 3 numbers, and again, they are provided in the accounting numbers to use section. So if you click on this little question mark, they're right up here at the top. So your expenses are going to either be project related, so J or P number, general overhead for general expenses, or your sales expense number for sales expenses. Now, again, these numbers are specific to expenses and they do not cover time. We've also included the seminar number, which I typically kind of glaze right by, but if you are going to a conference or seminar, you will use the seminar number. Then you'll complete your phase and your discipline for general overhead and sales expenses. These are typically your office location, your home office location. Moving into the bill box. Now the bill box really only applies to a J number. Now, one thing that we stress with the bill box is that it is the employee's responsibility to know whether or not the expense is billable directly to the client. The bill box will come in automatically checked every time, and you will be prompted with a warning, as you can see on the screen. So again, it's really up to you guys to know, check with your PM, consult the contract, look in Deltek, just to find out, is this expense billable to the client? If you know that it is, then, again, you'll check and uncheck the bill boxes as necessary.
We did look into that warning because I know it doesn't always make sense. It's saying that something should be billable and you know for a fact that it should not be. That's a default warning, and unfortunately it's not something that we can customize. It would either have a warning or have no warning at all. So we figured at least this way, it would give you pause, really think about whether it should be billable or not, but don't worry about the content of the warning. Just think of that as a checkpoint and make sure you're charging it appropriately.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Account code?
No, actually. So that even goes as far as to say, you know, the different expenses that may be billable or not billable. So again, you'll have to know, you know, if one client is allowing mileage but not allowing parking. You know, we have a very special circumstance with BGSU where mileage is put on 2 different lines. So, you know, one bill box is checked and then the line for the other, the bill box is not checked. So, I mean, it can even break out into deeper situations like that, that you'll have to, you know, again, consult the PM or the contract, or, you know, check Deltek for billing notes, or anything along that line, so that you know what is billable. So rolling right into that, as you can see, as you check and uncheck the bill box, your account code will change. So the account code is generated from the category and the project number, and it just rolls straight into a default account code. Now, you know, a little spiel about our accounting system. So we have 3 sets of codes. As you can see, the 5000 series is billable directly to the client. So your T&M projects, your plus expense projects. Your 6000 series is going to cover your fixed fee. So anything that the client is not going to see. The 3rd series is your 7000 series. Now, why, you ask yourself, am I telling you about our account codes? Well, this is why. The 7000 series was just so incredibly large that there was no way for us to break out every single 7000 number that we would need through Deltek. So for that reason, there are a couple of instances where you will have to manually change this account code. Now, the first instance of that is your T&E series. Your T&E covers travels between offices. You know, one example, seminars as well. So if you go to a seminar or a conference and you're using that seminar number, you would also change your account code to be a T&E. Now, the way that you're going to do that is there's a couple of ways. So you can either consult the list, again, in the accounting numbers to use section, click next to the question mark, or click the question mark. And we have provided this series of numbers. So your T&E series is here, as well as a few that would apply to miscellaneous, which is the next example. So if you have the number, you can plug it straight in, or you can just type the word of your category. So once you do that, you will get the list, and you can select T&E from that list. The next example, as I mentioned, is your miscellaneous category. So if you see the code 7895, 100% of the time you will change it. Now, the reason for this is because of tax reasons. So, you know, we just, at the end of the year, we don't want to see a whole bunch of miscellaneous expenses on our tax statements. So, so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to change it. So again, you know, use that list of the common ones that we've provided. You know, and if you have any questions whatsoever regarding a miscellaneous account code, please reach out to us. You know, accounting, OAC Accounting, you know, we're always available and happy to answer your questions. You know, we would rather you reach out to us and let us know that you're having an issue than, you know, have to delay processing or have to go through that. So now, again, the way that you're going to search for this is going to be typing part of the word. Now, the miscellaneous category is a little bit more of a hit and a miss, just because you don't really have a category to search for. So you're just kind of going to be, it's like throwing a dart at the wall. You know, sometimes you'll hit it, sometimes you won't. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to us. The example I use here is licensure. So, you know, That's typically the most common example of a miscellaneous expense. Another example would be your cell phone stipends typically fall into the miscellaneous category. But for this, I'm just going to type part of the word and it will generate a list. From here, I can select from that list. Now, I also want to show you, just if I type a little bit more of that word, it may auto-populate. If it does auto-populate for you, you can scroll down here. On your own screens, you shouldn't have to scroll, but you can read the account. It'll tell you exactly what that account is for. So the next step of the electronic process is going to be attaching documents. So you'll click right into your document box, and this is where you upload. Now, what I usually say about this is a little bit of a pick your poison scenario. So, there's a couple of different ways for you guys to upload these receipts. We want it to be as easy and as friendly for you as possible. So I'm going to give you a couple of different scenarios, and from there, and tell you what the end game that we want to see is, and from there, you just kind of pick your own, find what's comfortable for you. So, essentially the end game is going to be that we're going to see your receipts attached with the select box checked and the associate with new lines box checked. Now, both boxes do have to be checked in order for that file to be viewed on the billing end. Now, what I typically recommend for employees is that you upload these into one file. Now, when I say one file, from a billing standpoint, we still want you to separate out those projects per page. So you'll have one project per page, but they can all be included in one file. I find that this is typically what works the easiest for employees. And that's just because if you have them all in one file, after you're done, you can associate with all, and that will automatically associate all of those receipts with that, all of those lines. Likewise, if you have one file, you can upload it first, and if your associate with new lines box is checked, it will automatically associate that file with every new line that you add. So that's two reasons that, two ways that it really just makes it that much easier. Now, if you do scan them individually and you would just rather, upload the pages in the scans individually, again, that's absolutely fine. The only difference between having one file and having multiple is that you're going to be selecting the select box for each line. And in order to do that, you'll have to select and then hit OK, and then come into your next line. That wasn't my next line. Come into your next line and select the receipt for that. So it's just a little bit more of a back and forth. Once you hit disassociate with new lines box, that will stay checked no matter how many receipts that you have in there. So, and just to backtrack a little bit, to upload, you will upload by clicking the upload button. Now, if you want to take pictures, if you want to scan, the method that you get those receipts to be electronic is completely up to you. So once you have everything uploaded and, all of your lines are in, now I always recommend just doing a quick double check. Usually what I'll say is, get to a point in your screen where this bottom area is viewable, and just click in each line just to check that account code, make sure that it hasn't changed at some point in the process. Just make sure that everything really, really, truly looks kosher. And then from there, you're going to hit the submit button. Now, once you hit submit, you will be prompted with a screen to enter your Deltek password. This is what is going to electronically sign your expense report. There are a few prompts there as well. So, again, you'll see where it's prompting you to make sure that your receipts are attached and, all of those prompts. But once you enter your password, then your expense report is submitted and it will move into the approval process. So the one other thing that I did want to show you is going to be the progress tab. Now, Emily touched on it a little bit. But I just wanted to show you, again, to reiterate that the comment section is here. So when it's passing through the review process, you can view any notes. You know, if you're ever wondering where's this expense report at in the process, you can come to this progress tab. It will tell you, you know, whose responsibility that expense report is at any given point of time. So, you know, if it's moved, you know, you're not sure who your approver is, you can also check it here in your progress tab. Okay, so
I have a question.
does anybody have any questions? We're gonna pop into the chat box here. Okay.
I submit proof of mileage, do you need to submit that?
Proof of mileage is not required. You know, again, having more information for accounting is always preferred. However, at this point in time, we do not require any documentation for your mileage. So Dave Faller's question here. That does not mean that all of your expenses need to be submitted by the Osborne close date. You know, typically what we say is, you know, please get those expenses in as frequently and as quickly as possible. You know, we don't necessarily want you waiting a full month, you know, to expense your items, especially if those items are project related. You know, we want to get those into our system and out of our system as quickly as possible, billed to the client, you know, again, as quickly as we can. So, you know, usually our frame of reference is going to be, you know, get them in. Now, if you are the kind of employee who has a lot of expenses and does want to wait till the end of the month, you know, again, that's absolutely fine. But, you know, again, still follow that mind frame that you're getting them in as quickly as possible. So, you know, after that, that date has passed, you know, just get them into us. Account code reference other than the pull down. So the account codes are also listed in the handout that Jackie has posted on the bridge that has been updated. And there is a little cheat sheet attached to that if you know, so that you can keep that at your desk, kind of like a quick reference. But, you know, for the most part, the account codes are going, the most common account codes are going to be in that list or, you know, found by searching and with the box. You can use JPEGs or PDFs for the images, the receipts. What is the password?
Can you go through and say adding? Did you see that?
You missed one.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add, but again, you would just click upload.
Just run through it and fake it.
I don't have anything to attach to it, though, is what I'm saying.
But it'll just show her, it'll pick it.
But again, you would click upload, you'll select it from wherever it is on your computer to select, click open, and then it'll bring you back to this window with all of the, with the file or files that you've selected there for you to select and to associate. Okay.
No, go.
Move that, yeah, grab that and slide it up. There you go.
All right. Is it possible to show?
What is the password?
The password is your Deltek password.
Yeah, it'll be your personal password. So whatever your password for Deltek is, you'll have to enter that in order to sign your expense report.
That's your Jerry gun.
Is it possible to show the posted expense reports box? I mean, that's something that we could look into. You know, we could check with CCG, but I can't guarantee that it's possible to have them show the total of the expense report in that window.
I can tell everyone this, as far as payroll goes, which is what this governs, right? We post payroll 2 days before. We have to post payroll
3.
3 days. So we have to post payroll 3 days prior to the payroll date. So if you're keeping in your mind, that's when, you know, the last cutoff is in reality. Again, like Doug said, it's 2 weeks, but if you get it in 10 days prior, it should make the next one if everything goes right. But that's what we're, you know, it's not the 15th, it's 3 days before the 15th or 3 days before the 13th when HR is posting timesheets and expense things for payroll.
Can you demonstrate accessing information on the bridge?
You can close that.
The bridge, I should have the middle. Oh, there it is. So when you're on the bridge, and my login never works, so, yeah, if you want to log in. So when you're, we'll just have Emily log in for a second. Yes.
I know you just did that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, right? Yay.
So from here, once you're on the bridge page, you're gonna go to Resources, Deltek, and then over here on the side of the screen, you're going to click your Vision User Manual, and your PDF is going to be attached right here at the top next to your PDF version of your Vision User Manual. So this is where you'll find the updated expense module.
Jackie, no dates on the calendar. It's a rolling 2 weeks, depending on the date of submission.
Okay.
Is that all the questions? Again, if you do have any questions, you know, if you're doing your expense reports and you have any questions whatsoever, you know, please shoot an email to OEC Accounting. You know, again, we're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. One other thing before we sign off is I do want to let you know any expense reports that you have in the system as of this moment will be processed. So, you know, if you have duplicate expenses in there, if you have, you know, things that are old or outdated, you know, please be advised that we're going to be processing everything electronically from this point forward. So, you know, please take a moment after we sign off here to check your modules and make sure that all of those expenses are okay to be processed. You know, if you guys have any older ones that just missed being submitted or missed being sent to OEC Accounting, you know, if the receipts aren't attached, it will be pinged back to you to attach receipts, you know, et cetera. It will follow, all of them will follow this new process from here out.
So this workflow will kick off this afternoon. I have to go back and enter all the expense report approvers on everybody's employee profile. And once that's entered, it triggers that workflow. So you can expect this process to start this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you everyone so much.